had to turn on, whoops, had to open the blinds because I was a little dark up here. So we are live, and I'm really excited about tonight because tonight I have the pleasure of speaking with someone who I have gotten to a little bit. I don't say, what I say? We weren't against each other. We were supporting one another in our quest to assistant principal of the year. And we were in the running, right? We're in the running. So I am so glad that Mr. Miller has joined me on my quest to be the AP champion with my Alve Pro consulting. And tonight we are going to talk about managing tasks as a new assistant principal. So if you've been on any of my collaboration over competition lives, it's a virtual conversation. I converse either with myself or I bring on other administrators to just share knowledge and share experiences with the aspiring or current assistant principal, whether you are just getting in the position, right? Because a lot of people are becoming assistant principals right now. So there's somebody out there who received the call or got the email that they are now an assistant principal. They landed the job. Or maybe, you're finishing your first year and you're reflecting on that year and you're like, oh, is this for me? Is this really what I want to do? Because honestly, when I was in my first year, and I've told this story, I was literally out in the parking lot on the phone with HR asking how my pay cut will be, how much it will be, because I was ready to go back to being an instructional coach. So I've done that a couple times in my first year or two, right? So I get it. Or maybe you're a vet and you want to share some of your knowledge with us tonight, wherever you are, because I'm streaming on YouTube as well as my assistant principal group on Facebook. If you are joining us this evening, I'm so glad that you're here. Let me know you're here in the comments. I try to read comments. I am utilizing StreamYard, and StreamYard on my end will not show me your name or your picture unless you've given it permission. So if I'm reading your comments and I don't say your name, that's only because I can't see it. So I want to honor you and your experiences and who you are. So I will share your comments, but I may not know who you are. So until later when I go back and watch the replay. So if you're here on either one of those platforms, I am so grateful to have you this evening. It is a Wednesday night, 7:00 p.m. EST. So if you're here if you're in the West Coast, thank you. Thank you for getting off work and joining us. If you are with me this evening, you're probably prepping for food. I was just telling John I'm ordering food tonight. So I was taking everybody's order because mama ain't cooking. If you are here though, please leave your name. Go ahead and leave your name because I can't see it. Your position. So are you an assistant principal? Are you an instructional coach aspiring to be an assistant principal? Are you even a principal? Whatever your role is in education, share that with me. And where are you located? I love to see all the people that come from around the country. And sometimes we get people from around the world. If you've watched some of my lives, we've talked to people in Australia and other countries. So please just share with me who you are, what you do, and where you are located. So tonight, as I'm gathering, myself, I would love for, let me tell you a little bit about Alve Pro, because I always have to remember that there are newbies on here as well. So if you're in my Facebook group, we've done this. We've done this a few times. But if you're watching live on YouTube, maybe you just saw a link or someone reposted something. So a little bit about myself. I am Joyce Conley. I am the creator of Alve Pro Network. So I created Alve Pro Network in order to support the assistant principal. Because like I said, when I was a new assistant principal, honestly, I did not have the support that I needed. I had a fantastic principal, but my principal was needing to do all the things that she needed to do. And sometimes reality is you forget that she forgot that I didn't, and I told her that. She forgot that I didn't know some of these things that were coming up or the expectations. And so I wanted to provide a space where assistant principals could come together and ask questions and be in community. Because honestly, sometimes when we are in community, we're not always in a safe environment, safe space, and we like to keep our jobs. So I wanted that to be an opportunity for us to collaborate, get to know one another, and be in a safe space. So I created that. And in the last few months, I have branched off into consulting and coaching. So I work with schools and new assistant principals within their first couple years in order to support them on their journeys, especially when they're feeling like this probably is not for me. And my 3 R's, my framework is building relationships, Response, so effective communication and being resilient, because in these times in education, you have to have resilience. And that's not a naughty word. It is okay to be resilient. So that's a little bit about myself. And tonight I have John Miller. And like I said, John is, and I put this on the internet, but John is a current principal. He just moved into his principalship. He was an assistant principal and he was up for assistant principal of the year with me. And he took home the title. And honestly, John, when I walked off that stage and your name was announced, I was honored. I won't lie. When I heard your story, I was so honored and I was so proud of you. And I just want you to know that, because we also still have like Tuesday night courses together. But I want you to know that I walked away and I was like, dang, okay, yeah, that is amazing. I heard your story and I was like, yes. I was just really honored to be on the stage with you. So I am so glad that you, when I said I'm tapping you next, I'm so glad that you agreed to be here with me, because I feel like I know you have a story to tell, which we won't necessarily tell your story, but I feel like in your experiences, you can share a lot to the new assistant principal, especially since you have like a really huge advantage because you just crossed over to leading a school as a principal. So you're kind of like, all right, so for the newbies, you've been there, done that. And then for those who are trying to get that principalship, because I just posted someone got a principalship, like we're getting principalships too, you know exactly what they should be, well, somewhat expecting, right? So you have some nuggets to share. So I'm excited for you to be here, but I'm done for a second. And John, please tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, please.
Well, thank you so much, Joyce, for having me. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, the work of molding and building new administrators, just being that outlet for them, because I do think it's needed. I definitely agree with you that there is no blueprint, there is no best practices of how to handle or navigate things when you get your first administrative role. So a little bit about me. So I definitely appreciate everything that you're doing and building the capacity of our administrators, because it's needed. It's definitely needed. So kudos to you for the work that you're doing and the vision and the mission that you're pushing for the work that you're doing. But a little bit about me. I'm a country kid. Grew up in a small country town, Belle Glade, Florida. It is Palm Beach County, so it's west of West Palm Beach, uh, where we know the sugar canes, where we chase rabbits and things along those lines. That's a little bit about me. But I was born in Miami, Florida, Jackson Memorial Hospital. So all my Miami people, Dade County people, what's up to you guys? But I grew up in a small country town. My grandmother was an educator. She was a elementary teacher, but I didn't think I would follow in her path. And my aunt was an educator as well. And so I followed in their path. I happened to find education by chance because my degree is in criminology. And so I know I always wanted to work with students, whether it's prevention, intervention, mentoring, and I get to do it through education. So I'm doing that now. And so how I landed in education, after I got through playing college football, I played here in Orlando with the Orlando Predators. And then once my time ended, I moved back home to Belle Glade. And so my wife, I was looking for opportunities to get back up to Tampa, where I was where I attended school, University of South Florida. And so that's where I met my wife as well. And so I moved back home. I started coaching. I was a substitute teacher. I was mentor. And so I was already in the school system, just trying to get some things squared away until I moved back up to Tampa. And so my wife was like, hey, Hillsborough County in Tampa, Florida, is looking for educators or individuals who don't have education degrees. And so I said, okay, if that's the quickest way I can get back up to my girlfriend, now my wife, let me do that. And so that's why I said I found education by chance. And so I took a certification before I moved up to Tampa, and my background is in exceptional student education. K through 12, which is ESC, students with disabilities, various exceptionalities. And so I moved up and did the Great American Teach-In. No, I think it was the Great Florida Teach-In, something like that, at the big convention center in Tampa. And so when I tell you it worked out for me, that I found it by chance, because I was the room where they were doing all the interviews for Hillsborough County. So this is a large interview at the Tampa Convention Center where all the counties from the state are there.
Oh, wow.
And so the room for Hillsborough County was closed, and they weren't letting anybody else in the room. And so when I saw the young lady turn her back, I snuck in. And was trying to feel myself. Okay, I'm in here now. What do I do? And so I go to a high school table where they had their whiteboard, where they were looking for someone to teach students with exceptionalities, ESC students, or students with special needs. And I had that certification. They interviewed me, and they offered me the job. And so I've been in education since 2017. No, I'm sorry, 2007. 2007. I can remember because the same year my wife and I got married, that was the same year I started in education. So as long as my wife and I've been married and I've been in education, I've been in education for 16 years. And so I've had a myriad of jobs. I can say I've actually worked in 4 school districts: Palm Beach County, Hillsborough County, Seminole County, and Orange County here in Orlando. And so those varying experiences and varying roles that I've had as an educator, I believe has prepared me to be an administrator. And so my life experiences, coupled with my varying experiences and backgrounds from those 4 different districts, I believe has prepared me for this role as a school administrator. This is my 3rd year as a school administrator. Many people think I've been in education. I've been in education for 16 years, but been an administrator for some time. But this is my 3rd year. So I was a administrator. I got my first administrative job over in Seminole County. I was a dean at Carver Middle School. Then I got the call for an administrative job over in Seminole at Markham Woods Middle School, Seminole County. I was there for a semester during the COVID year. I was there for, well, coming out of the COVID year, we're still in COVID. And so my wife was working at home for a whole year. And she was like, hey, they're calling me back to work, so you need to move closer to home. So I wanted to grow in education and develop to the point where I drove through 2 counties to get to a job. So I drove through Lake to get to Seminole. So I left Orange, drove through Lake, and then got to Seminole. So I took the 429 all the way out till it didn't run out into nothing else. But I recently became a principal in January this year, 2023. And as Joyce shared, we were tag teaming. We were, triple team. We were in the running together for assistant principal of the year. And so it was definitely an honor to be with you, as well as Mr. Simmons as well with that. But that's just an indication of the work that we do, standing on stage with 2 other individuals who's leading the charge and the mission and the vision of Orange County Public Schools. And so after that, I transitioned into this role as an assistant principal, 930 students, 120 staff members that I get to lead and I get to serve. And so I'm truly excited about being here and looking forward to what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I want to go back to something because it's funny. I went to school. So I always thought I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be in education. But then I was like, no, I want to be in the FBI. So I went to Florida State and I was starting criminology. Right. So I go to orientation for criminology because I'm like, I'm going to be in the FBI. This is what I'm going to do. Like, I want to be like X-Files and all that. Right. So we go to orientation. Now, mind you, like, I'm ready for this. They said to me, Well, FBI is not what it looks like on TV on X Files. You most likely will have to be, if you want to be like, a serious FBI agent, not sitting behind a desk. You would have to be a police officer, most likely. I said, oh no, oh nope, I'm good. Immediately, I left out of there because I'm like, I don't want to be there like in the action. I wanted to come after the action
Right.
and try to figure out why did this person do this. Like, that's what I wanted to do. So it's so funny. So that's what I thought. And I always say this job allows you to be all of that.
It
Like we
does.
could be in that. Yeah, we're trying to investigate stuff. I'm trying to look over here. I'm, looking at cameras, interrogations and stuff like that. So I say, I can do all of that, plus everything else being an administrator. So that's really funny. But yeah, I did think I was going to be in the FBI. All right. So now to my questions. And again, if you've been here before, this is really informal. So if my 4-year-old like comes up the stairs and starts screaming, "Hi, mommy, he just got home." Hey, don't even worry, right? I'll take care of it, but it's informal. So no pressure. So thank you for introducing yourself. Tonight we're going to talk about time management because I've seen people say, what do you do for what planner do you use? That's a part of time management, right? What do you do when you're trying to get into the classrooms and you haven't been in the classroom in months? What can you do because you have all of these other things? So I figured let's talk about how we can manage time, like just some tips on managing times or time and some experiences with managing or lack thereof managing time because I don't feel like there's anybody in this world who is a perfect time manager, especially in our jobs because we're hit with things left and right, right? But if we can encourage someone or give some tips and some experiences, that would be great. So, John, what's time management to you? Like, what does that look like?
Time management looks for me is working from my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't get my attention at that moment. And so for me, it's really looking at, deadlines or due dates or things that needs to be done within a time frame. I operate from that perspective. And yes, you do have your time busters where you have a organized calendar, you have everything concise and succinct of how it's going to be. But as an administrator, we don't have a perfect day.
Yeah.
And so there are other things that may take away your time from your calendar. So for me, in an ideal world, which is operating from my calendar, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't get my attention. And so I work strategically. My secretary, she already knows if it's not on my calendar, don't bring it to me because it's just so much. I currently oversee 930 students and 120 faculty staff that we have on campus, and my time is very limited. And so if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't get my attention. And so looking at that, it creates, I have to find rhythms of time to build in my calendar to allow for this popping up, a parent popping up, and things along those lines. So I have to really put that in my calendar or overextend time just so that, okay, if this meeting finishes early, I can go walk some classrooms. I can meet with this visitor. I can meet with this guest. So really just, time management is really being organized. You got to manage your time because, I start my day early and I end in late. My home life allows me to do that. I start my day, we get the girls up. My wife and I, we have 2 beautiful daughters, Jessica Robin and Jordan Rowe, 8 and 5-year-olds. And my wife's a college administrator. So our calendar has to be managed. I was telling Joyce before we went live that my wife and I, we have a calendar on our refrigerator of who's picking up the girls, who's dropping off the girls, worst case scenario, who's cooking dinner or who's picking up dinner, things along those lines.
Or who's doing the hair tonight?
Who's doing, yes, because after I get off tonight, I'm taking out my white braids tonight.
I love it so much.
The daughter's plaits and braids last night.
I love it.
That's all part of management, time management. And so just being organized and operating from a place of priority.
Yeah.
You know what's important, what can wait, and you know what needs to get done. If there is a data analysis needed for your bosses, if a specific number of kids need to be tested by this date, you operate from that standpoint, and then you prioritize what needs to get done. High priority, low priority. That's how I operate. And so for me, as I share, if it's not on my calendar, it's not going to get my attention at all.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, I have 3 administrators, and I really try to build their capacity. So if something comes up, I can quickly delegate because of the demand on me. Everybody wants to get my time, and I have a box that's called spam.
Yeah, right.
And so if it's not gonna be beneficial to supporting teachers, increasing student proficiency, or running Meadowbrook Middle School, it's going to spam. It's
Awesome.
going to spam. And,
Right.
oftentimes we see so many educators with email boxes of 1,000 emails. That's not me. That is not me. I shoot those things out to the people who oversee that particular area, and I move from there. It's, as you go higher, I'm noticing as you go higher, your role is to make decisions, problem solve, and delegate. Make decisions, problem solve, and delegate. And also cast vision and build the capacity of your APs as a principal, build the capacity of your APs to feel empowered to run the school, especially when you're not there. You may be at a district meeting, you may be at another school, you may be here, maybe there. You have to build the capacity and the trust, the capacity and the trust of your leaders or your coaches or your administrators up under you to really do the job of managing the school when you're not there.
Very true. So I heard 2 things, well, a few things, but definitely putting everything on your calendar. So I know some people will say, hey, what planner do you use? Look, if your planner is your calendar, your planner is your calendar. If you use Outlook, whatever, or a Google Calendar, whatever it is, it's my advice is to use one and stick with it.
Yeah.
Because I use 2 and I'm going back and forth. So I'm trying to get better with that. That's one of those things, how you reflect, like, man, if I could just do it digitally, I'd be okay. But something in my brain says, write it down. Right. But anyway, but my advice, okay, so what do they say? Like, do as I say, not as I do. Use one and stick with it so that you don't miss those things. Honestly, too, I remember we were in a training or something, and we were in a breakout session, and we were talking about getting into classrooms. And at the time, I think he was like an executive area director. I didn't know that, but he said what he has done and what he has had his whole staff do is block out the first 90 minutes on the calendar, and that's for classroom visits. But it's on the calendar. So the expectation is it's there, and your secretary knows that it's there, or whoever the leadership team knows, because we need to communicate amongst each other as well, our calendars, right, as best we can. But they know that is an expectation. So that's good. And also the prioritizing, right? I remember, I think it was probably Inbox interview or whatever it was called. It wasn't Inbox, it was something else, right? But it was an interview that we were coming to get into the AP pool. And one of the questions was something about how do you prioritize your day? And I remember saying, I have a priority or to do now and to do later. That's really a thing. What do you need to do now today? What can you do later? So when I created a journal for that reason. So if I have a Caring Leader journal, and it's about prioritizing your tasks, and it's literally, what do I need to do now and what can I do later, right? Because that really is a mindset that we have to go into. And if you have those do laters, it's because all of those other things will happen. Parents will come up there. So I'm gonna ask you this because I want to know. A parent comes up to your school, Mr. Miller, Principal Miller, and they want to speak to Principal Miller right now. What do you do? Because that's a thing, right? We're talking about managing time, and we're prioritizing time. What is your process at your school when parents do that? Because they will. But that's going to interrupt your whole day.
Yeah. So it depends on the situation. So I've built the capacity of our front office clerk to try to ascertain as much information as possible of the why, the concern, Um, and so they do the digging. They do the digging for me. And so oftentimes, if the parent is upset or irate, I don't want to talk to anybody else. I don't want to talk to anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
The front desk secretary knows to go get the school secretary, the principal secretary, and she says, "Hey, he's unavailable at this time. He's currently in a meeting or what have you." But what I can do is have you to talk to Mrs. King, who's the principal designee in the absence of the people of the principal. So I think the main thing is just building in fail safes.
Yeah.
If it's that I want the principal now, I want the principal now. Principal's not going to be available every time.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the front desk clerk ascertains to what is the problem, what's the concern. And so once the front desk clerk knows what the problem or the concern is, we move in the direction of if the kid didn't bring home a report card and the teacher said they weren't going to give them another copy, we go to the counselor, they print one out. Or if it was an issue with a kid who got into an altercation, what have you, they call that grade level dean. And so it's the troubleshooting of what needs to be built within the confines of that. But if I'm free and I'm available,
Mm-hmm.
I'll speak with that parent. But I need the front desk clerk or whomever to get as much information so I'm not blindsided. Oftentimes, I don't mind being blindsided if I'm free.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have a deadline or something on my mind, I put that on my calendar. So once the front desk clerk notifies my secretary, she looks at my calendar. And then if she sees nothing on my calendar, she'll come ask me, "Hey, are you able to speak to this parent?" And I don't mind, because for me, it's an opportunity for me to meet the parent, since I'm the new principal of the school, to build that community, that sense of community, that open door policy for the community to come in. So it varies depending on what task I have on my calendar or what I need to get done. But for the most part, if I'm just in my office, I have my door open, so they know that, hey, I have this parent who's pretty upset. And then once I bring the parent back, I sit them down at my table. I always have mints and water. And, "Hey, I'm Mr. Miller, principal. Would you like some water or some mints?" And then a lot of times that brings them down.
Yeah.
And so I have the conversation with them. What's the concern? How can I help?
Yeah.
Always. And then I just maintain my demeanor. Oftentimes, my secretary often calls me the schmoozer. And so I try to see from the parent's perspective, because what's going on is, I think we have to take a step back and look at it from the parent's perspective. They're advocating for their child, or they're advocating for whatever they're advocating for. And put yourself in their shoes. If it's your child, how would you want to be addressed? If it's your child, how is the situation being handled? So at the end of the day, they want to be serviced. And then as educators and administrators, we're in a field of service. Let's provide this service. Let's try to resolve the situation to move on. And so that's how I handle, those situations when parents show up.
Yep. I had a workshop about difficult conversations, and the end of all of that, if you really want to be able to have difficult conversations or courageous conversations, whatever you call it, you really need to lead with empathetic listening.
Right.
And that's the part where people have to separate their feelings from the other person's feelings. So if you're receiving a parent coming in and they're irate, we don't know what that parent's dealing with. So our job is to have that empathetic listening, right, skill, to just hear where they're coming from, put ourselves, I love how you said that, put ourselves in their shoes and allow them to get it out. I mean, I would say 90% of the time, okay, maybe that's a really high, but a lot of the time, they just want to be heard. We have a process at our school. I really like yours. And when I become a principal, I might have to utilize some of that, right? Because I like how I don't like being blindsided. I will the radio, Miss Conley, can you come to the office? Beep, 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 beep. I'm calling the front office. What's going on? Because what am I supposed to answer on the radio and be like, yeah, I'm coming? No, I'm not going to do that, because I don't know what I'm walking into. I like heads up. Give me something. So if you take that information, like who's the student, whose class are they in? Because I might call the teacher real quick and say, why is this parent up here right now talking? Like, why is she upset? Do you know anything? Did anything happen? Like, tell me, give me a heads up. That way I can support you, right? and I can go in knowing something, because sometimes you're not able to really break that barrier if you
Correct.
don't have that information in your head, something in your head. So even the other day, so I'm still training the front office staff, like, now, I do not take blind calls, right? So call me on the phone, go to the back, call me on the phone. Because those things, they can come in irate, and honestly, especially it's like first thing in the morning, and like, come on, like, give me a
Yeah.
little heads up.
And our
But I like you
secretaries
from the
know,
secretary. Yeah.
yeah, our secretaries, they know between 9 and 9:30, that's our arrival time.
Uh-huh.
Nobody's coming to talk to parents. That if they really want to talk to somebody, they
They'll
can
wait.
wait
Yeah.
till after 9:30 when everybody's in class and kids are coming late off the bus or what have you. Once they get in class,
Yeah.
if they're
Then
willing to wait, we'll talk to them. But if
Yeah.
they say I want somebody now, well, they're at duty. And
Right.
so if they want to make an appointment, take your phone number down, we'll follow up with you. But that, student safety is important. And
Yeah.
so, if they're willing to wait, we'll accommodate them, especially if they came in uh, more than enough time, we'll give them that opportunity to,
Yeah.
speak with us.
For sure. There has to be a balance. I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and the principal there was talking about how she has an open door policy. She knows that the parents know that she will talk to them, and they'll, have that dialogue. But you just cannot do that all the time. That's just not realistic. So there has to be some type of like system in place. Like at our school, we have like a blue sheet that it was pre-Joyce, but there's a blue sheet. So if you have a concern, you fill it out, and then they give that blue sheet to whomever it's directed to, and then that person is following up with them within 48 hours. So all of those things are great, because the reality is our day is going to be interrupted. Like,
Correct.
from the moment, sometimes it's literally getting out your car. Like, you pull up, they're like, oh, she's here, he's here. Like, let me go tell them what happened, because I got this crazy email from, a parent last night, and I need to tell you. And you're like, oh no, that's really bad. Or, like a threat, something like that. Something that's like disrupts the moment that you get on campus. So I love how you have those systems. So with that, think about like juggling. It sounds like you have like a lot of systems in place, and you have like the calendar where you're going through those procedures, right? That process. But think about juggling those multiple responsibilities, because too, I want us to think about the new AP who has no idea what they're doing, like no clue, because they've never done it before. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Like, juggling all of that, how do you manage all of the responsibilities of an administrator?
I think for me, my first administrative role, what I did was while working in Seminole County at Markham Woods Middle School. When I first got my job, they give you your roles and responsibilities. So what I did first was reach out to every individual at the district level that was associated with that responsibility that I had. So if it was, let's just say, the Marzano framework or the teacher evaluation framework, I reached out to the senior administrator or program specialist for that area to see how this district utilizes that platform.
Mm-hmm.
Where are the features, where's the platform, where's that located? I was over testing. So I was the testing coordinator at the time. Hey, new AP, let me just give you testing. And so I was over testing. So I reached out to the testing coordinator for the district. Hey, when are the trainings? When are these? And so I sat time with that individual. So any area that I was overseeing, I had a district contact just in case if I couldn't get the answer from my principal or my other APs at the school, I had a district contact in my back pocket to manage. And then so for me, I'm a people person. I have to talk to somebody. I have to have them on the phone in order for me to learn to do what I'm doing. Right. And so I that first week as an AP, I definitely, addressed the responsibilities based on my principal, but every area that I oversaw, I put that on my calendar and I shared it with my principal. I shared it with my other APs so that they know, hey, I'm meeting with this person for my job responsibility. I'm meeting with that person for the area that I oversee. So really connecting is the main thing, connecting the dots, connecting with district level individuals who are experts in that area. So that's the main thing that I would recommend for a new AP who's juggling many areas. Reach out to the contact for that area. If it's facilities, reach out to the facilities manager for your area. Have him to come out with you to walk the school, different things like that, because, the facilities managers, they know more than you
Yeah.
about your campus, because they know from the standpoint of maintenance and repairs and things along
Mhm.
those lines. You don't have a degree or background in maintenance or anything like that. So you reach out to the areas that you oversee or the contacts at the district level so that you have insight. And then two, those individuals may send somebody out to sit down and walk you through some of the things. Like for instance, if you're assistant principal over facilities, you
Mhm.
may not know how to submit a work order. So you need
Right.
to know how to put in a work order, things along those lines. So the main thing for an AP is to make as many connections as possible that will ensure you do your job to the best of your ability. So making those connections of areas that you oversee.
Yep. So, and that starts with, we were talking about in a workshop, building relationships, and specifically building relationships with your principal as a new assistant principal coming in. Like, it's really important that you ask clarifying questions. What are you expecting of me? Like, what are my roles? What are my responsibilities? Because you never want to walk into being a new assistant principal and not know what you're supposed to be doing, at least your roles and responsibilities. So to be able to have that written somewhere so you
Yeah,
can refer to is really key. So when you are having that meeting, like, if they don't set it with you, you set it with them. Hey, I would love to sit down and talk to you about your expectations of me. What tasks am I over? Like, what are my expectations?
correct.
And then don't walk out being confused. So like, it's like, okay, well, you're over discipline. Okay, what does that mean? I'm over discipline. Am I the one that, is the first call, second call? Do I process the referrals, or does the clerk process the referrals? Like, all of those things, you want to kind of ask those questions, and then go back. So, and I also hear call, make connections, call. Like, some people don't like to call, right? They don't want to call because they don't want to sound like they don't know what they're talking about. That is the silliest thing, right? Because if who cares if you sound like you don't know what
If
you're
you
talking about?
don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, and
Ask.
that's what they get paid for. They get
Correct.
paid to take your phone call and to give you those answers.
Right.
So getting that Rolodex early on, I love how you said you look to see my roles and responsibilities. Okay, I'm over facilities. Who in the world is over facilities at the district? Let me call them. Let me get
Right.
on their best side, right? Remember when we got into education, I think it was two people that you were supposed to get closest with, the secretary and the custodians. That's real
Mhm.
life. It's
Right.
the same thing. Like, think about the majority of your work. The discipline administrator, that's probably right, and facilities. So who are over those things? Because as soon as I need the AC goes out, I need to put in a work order, right? Of course, first, but I'm making that phone call and it's like, hey, it's Joyce. Oh, hey, Joyce, right? So having that, building those relationships with the people that you'll probably never ever see in your life, but over the phone, they're your best friends.
Correct.
Because
Correct.
I swear I've been on the phone with professional standards quite a few times recently. And I'm just like, when we were at the job fair on Saturday, I was like, oh, where is she? Where is she? I would love to put a face to that
I
name,
should have thought about that when I was there. Yeah.
Yes, I was looking for her, and I had no idea. I had no idea who she could possibly be. And I hate that I
Right.
didn't go over there and introduce myself, but it's all good. But those are the things, you will never see them, but they will become your best friends. So call them. Okay, so we don't have too much more time. I'm so happy with this dialogue. I only want to go like 20 more minutes because you got things to do, and so do I. Um,
Hey, you got my time. You got my time. So
no, you need to go do
no,
done
I'm
done
serious.
the hair.
I'll be up tonight, so I'll be watching the Lakers while taking out hair tonight.
True. That's I love that so much. Okay, so because of all these questions that I had for you, we've kind of talked through most of them because we're talking about how um let's see, how the tools and techniques. We got a calendar. Is there anything else that you use, Mr. Miller, besides a calendar? Is there anything else that's like, man, because mine, I would say sticky notes. Like, sticky notes are
Oh,
my best friend.
so what I do use, I have a journal.
Yep, that too. Yep.
So I do have a journal. So any meetings I go in or anything like that, like parent meetings, like a lot
Yep.
of my parent
Yep.
meetings are here. The notes that I'm taking down so that if I need to follow up with this dean, or if I need to follow up with this counselor, if I need to follow up with this safe coordinator, I have the notes down to provide to those individuals that need to be looped in on that parent conversation. And so, yeah, this is my
Yep.
journal that I keep. I may take it with me when I go do walks to class, but I use my when I go into class, I use my phone. Um, I use the OneNote. I use my
Okay.
OneNote so when I go into classrooms, just so I can take a snapshot of what I'm seeing. I use my phone to take a picture of the Common Board configuration, the standards, learning targets, all of those things, the agenda for the day, so that when I'm doing my observations, if I have that, upload that in the platform that we use to evaluate teachers. So I use my phone, I use my my journal, and then my calendar. Those are the three main tools that I really use to set my day: my calendar, my notebook, and my phone. So I don't have any other gadgets or tools or anything along those lines, but those are the three main things that I reference on a daily basis to help me navigate my day in the role of an administrator.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Those, I'm trying to think, is there anything else that I would have? But definitely a journal, a notebook. Like
Mhm.
I don't know, when I was in the classroom, it was like lamination. That was my thing. Like that thing brought me joy. I love to laminate and cut it. My now as an administrator is finding a new journal. Like I love finding a journal that I'm like, man, I can't wait for this to open this up so I can take my notes. A nice pen, right? My favorite pens. I was joking today. I found a pen. I left it in my principal's office, and I was like, oh, there's my pen. And there was a teacher in there, and she was laughing. And I was like, no, seriously, I count them. I make sure there's 16 before I, because I love these pens. And they came with 16. I am going to keep 16.
Mhm.
So just having those types of things are key. I know some people, we just got Rocket books. So the principals I know got some Rocket books in the my learning community. They got Rocket books, and then we just received some. And Rocket book is where it's like a little small spiral, and you can take notes on it, and you're writing on it, and then you take a picture of it, and it shoots to your Google Drive.
Wow.
You tell it where to go, like what folder do you want it to go in, and you can have like 5 different folders, 4 different folders, something like that.
You're all
So that's
fancy over there in the
that's
Southwest
really
learning
cool.
community.
Right in the what?
I
West,
said,
West is the
"Hey,
best.
oh no, you're in the
West,
West.
yes, yes, yes. West is the
Yes,
best.
you're in the West. You all are
Yeah.
pretty fancy over there."
Right. So, and yeah, our area superintendent is going to now be our executive leader. So I'm like really excited about that. But yeah, so that's a new thing that I haven't figured it out yet, but it's cool. So if you're techie, but still like me, I'm techie, but I like to write. That could be a really cool happy medium. But yeah, I kept thinking like sticky notes. I love a good sticky note. I love it.
It's too much for me. I can't. They'll be everywhere. No.
Yeah, but that's the thing, and I find joy in it. I find joy in throwing it away because it's like, oop, did that, boop, oop,
Right.
got complete, bloop, like that. So it's, I don't know, maybe I'm just a little silly, but so that, and and this is a tip, when you're interviewing or interviewing a kid, a student, I'm writing everything they say. So I've got a legal notepad or whatever it is, because legal notepads, and I file them later at like the end of the year. Those are all my notes, or I rip them out and put them in the kids' file. But I am, and I'm every question I ask, I write it down, and every response, just because my memory is not the best, especially when I'm juggling a bunch of things. So the more that you write down, the better. One thing I liked with my principal, my current principal, she has a calendar, but it's like a calendar / journal. So the calendar goes vertical. So it's like, just this is the day, but it's a whole vertical line. And then she can write everything for that day. So you usually have like a little box in a calendar, but this one gives you a whole like third of the sheet, which I really kind of like that, because it really gets you back to, you're allowed to take more notes, but it's specifically to that day. Like, what do I need to follow up? I need to call Johnny's parent tonight, today. So I really like that. But those little things, you figure it out, like you figure out what's good and what works for you. And I will promise you, what worked for me last year isn't necessarily the same thing that worked for me this year. My planners change every year, because I'm like, oh, I like that. Oh, I really want that. So I'm going to add this piece. So it's not always going to be exactly the same. And you find what works for you, because one, you change, schools change, right? Positions change. So all of those things will change. So we talked about how handling the unexpected challenges or emergencies that arise, like when you're talking with parents. But let's say, for instance, because this happens to me, I'm neighbor, like literally we share a fence with an elementary school. Like, my school was so big 6 years ago, they split it into 2 schools. A fence divides us. They have some of our old buildings, but guess what else we share? The fire alarm.
Hmm.
So we have to coordinate fire drills. which is fine. I mean, it can be silly sometimes and, confusing, but it's fine. But the worst part is when a kid pulls the fire alarm. They pull the fire station. They pull
Both schools have to exit. Yeah.
Both schools are exiting, and we're both trying to figure out what happened. What school is it from? Was it you? Is it real? Is it, stuff like that. So that disrupts your whole day. Right. So if something like that happens, or let's say in middle school, give us an emergency that would happen in middle school or something. What was the last emergency that was like, oh, shoot, happened in your school?
The last emergency where we had to put the school on lockdown because it was an alleged weapon on campus. And so we had to put the school on lockdown. Had to put a school on a hold. Hold because we didn't know where it was and what happened. And so, have to do hold, you got to call site security. Then you have to call your bosses and let them know, because site security is going to send it up the chain to everybody. Yeah. So they don't want to be blindsided as well. So, with emergencies for us, we do it simultaneously. So I have someone call site security and I have somebody call our bosses. So they're not blindsided when it happens. So had to put the school on hold. So everything shuts down. And so we address the concern. We move the student to another location. They do the search and everything like that. Luckily, it was nothing. It was it wasn't anything in the student's bag, which is good. And so after that, call the parents, connect the students with the resource officers. They do their job. We do the search. We call the parents, and then we lift the hold. And so, then we have to make adjustments to the schedule, things along those lines.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate. Nothing's had happened during lunches.
Oh my gosh.
So, so that's how we handle that. So that just throws a wrench in your day. Everything, whatever's on your calendar, has to get moved to the next day or canceled or rescheduled. And so because of student safety, at the end of the day, our job is to get students on campus, get them fed, and get them home.
Yep, that's true. That's true.
That's essentially it. And then teach as well. Yeah. And instruct and lead. Yeah. So that's how you handle that emergency that comes up.
Have you ever been in an observation, especially like a formal one where it's scheduled and the teacher knows you're coming, you're doing your thing on the computer, and all of a sudden there's an emergency that happens?
I haven't had to endure that before. Okay. I have not. So I'm pretty fortunate not to have experienced that. Yeah. That's a scenario, you'll just reschedule it.
Yep.
You'll come back tomorrow.
But see, and that's the thing. So that has happened to me before. I've been in observations and it was like the fire alarm got pulled, or I was on the radio and it was emergency. But I think it was the fire. Yes, it was the fire alarm, because I was like, oh gosh, what's going on? So I just ran out, like, what's going on? But I think the reality is, and what I'm trying to say is, that's okay. Those things are going to happen. It's your mindset that matters, and how you approach the teacher, because they're already nervous and stuff like that. So if you understand this, again, that's that empathy. If you understand that, man, that teacher planned for this, it just got disrupted. She's probably upset. I'm going to go handle that situation, but then or the emergency, but I'm also going to circle back real quick and talk to her and make sure that they understand and are okay. And we're setting, hey, do you want me to come back? What would you like? So just really, really just being open and honest and empathetic with that, because those things happen. And if anything happens, where you have to cancel a meeting, communication, just communicate. People will be okay when we have to pivot and we have to adjust. We're used to doing that. We've had to pivot so much in these last few years. People are used to that, but what they need is that communication. Right. So it sounds like.
Yeah. And I think another thing too, another tool I just thought about, I use an earpiece. with my walkie.
Because you were in the criminology, you thought you were going to be in the
Yeah, I
FBI
use
too?
the
Okay.
earpiece, and it has a microphone on my shirt, and so I use that when I go in classes, because you have a radio. You need to have someone respond or call you in the event something happens.
Mhm.
So I use an earpiece. So I just purchased the earpiece off Amazon, maybe $7. So I encourage all administrators to get an earpiece. So when you go into class, your radio is not blasting. Your radio is not blasting. So what I did, I opened the back of my walkie, got the serial number, typed it in, earpiece for this serial number.
Okay, yeah.
So that's what I encourage, because you're walking throughout the main office. You don't want to hear, code 99, physical altercation. And so you got the front office like, why is there a fight going on or something like
Right.
that? So I try to tell my front office staff, please keep the radio a little lower, so that, and then too, when you go into classrooms, you don't want the kids think, hey, there's a code 99 or a
Yeah,
fight
that's true.
in room 203. And then the kids are looking like,
Looking around, yeah, like,
so,
oh yeah.
That's a little thing that I use too. That's another tool that I use every day.
Okay, that's great. That's fantastic. I had an earpiece at Independence Elementary School when I was a coach, and I hated that thing so much. They tried to give me one at Whispering Oak. I was like, It sat in my drawer for a minute. I agree that those things are very handy. And I swore I was going to, like I said, be in the FBI, and I thought I was going to be like this, But I don't know. It just bothered me. So I need a better one. That was a cheap
Yeah, I
one.
got one that just hooks. I don't have the one that the CIA and the Secret Service have where it's going in your ear. This one
I
has
think
a
that one I
little.
would like.
I have one that it just sits on the inner part of my ear. Has a little ear covering, so
McGee,
it's
I'm
like a
about to
little
get
speaker.
everybody earphone. I have my one of my instructional coaches is on here. I'm gonna get everybody earphones, ear things. That would be hilarious, I think. But I like the idea a lot, and I completely agree with you. I don't know, it's just a hard one for me, but it's true. It happens. I know
Mhm.
principals who will turn off their radio and they'll say, I'm going in the classrooms. And to me, I just turn it down because it's true. Like they can hear, they're listening. As soon as chirp, 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 they're looking around.
Right.
But good. I love the tips. Okay. So before we go, because my food's here. Before we go, Mr. Miller. Now, I want you to address two audiences, because there are two audiences here. We've got the aspiring assistant, well, three. The aspiring assistant principal, or the one that just got the job, right? They're newbies in it. And then those who, because in my group too, there are principals who just got principalships, or they've had them in the last year since we started. So what is your advice? It could be the same advice. It could be different advice. What would your advice be for the new AP that just got appointed, or about to be, hopefully, and then the new principal, since I know there's some here?
I have my it's a quote that my student affairs, vice president of student affairs, when I was at the University of South Florida, it's a quote, is be who you are and do good work. It's from Dr. Jennifer Meningall. Be who you are and do good work. And so what that essentially means is you are hired to do the job. So be the best administrator you can, and do good work. Do good work in serving teachers. Do good work in advocating for student success. Do good work in serving the community that you're in. And so one of my life quotes is by Dr. Robert Schuller. Tough times never last, but tough people do. Tough times never last, but tough people do, by Dr. Robert Schuller. That's my life quote. But we'll talk about my life another time. Life experiences and leadership at another time.
Yep.
So those are my two favorite quotes. Dr. Jennifer Meningall, be who you are and do good work, and Dr. Robert Schuller, tough times never last, but tough people do. So in this job of an administrator, we're in a place of service and leadership. And so be the best administrator that you can be. Be the best administrator that you want for your child. So think about that perspective, or your child or your niece, your nephew, what have you. You want your kids to go and say, hey, I have an amazing principal. I have an amazing assistant principal who cares, who's kind, who's considerate, things along those lines. So be the assistant principal that you want your kids to see on a day-to-day basis. And that's the only advice. Like I said, be who you are and do good work. That's what you're called to do. Our work that we do as administrators and educators is the work of service. So providing a service to support teachers, providing a service to support our students, to advocate for student success. So that is what we do in this field. And if you're in this role just because you want power, you want dictatorship, you want to be a monarchy, you're doing it for your wrong motives. As you know, people always say, you as educators, administrators, what have you, you are molding the minds of future leaders, future doctors, future lawyers, future teachers, future blue collar individuals. So you have this opportunity to do that. So really take it and run with it. You are called to do this work. There's going to be tough days. There's going to be highs and lows in this job, but keep the faith and keep fighting, and then you can definitely navigate it with the right support and network. And so that's all I have to share as it relates to tips or anything along those lines.
Preach. I love it. I love it. I love the quotes because they're real. And sometimes people they understand quotes better because it's short and sweet, to the point. So I love those two quotes: be who you are and do good work. So if we are focused, and I was, someone put a comment in my Facebook group, and I think they were struggling with the year. And I said, this is the time where we reflect and we remember why we got into this position. Because there's always going to be, and you have to keep going back and remembering. And I know some people say, oh, it's cliche, that's toxic positivity when you tell people to remember their why. I don't agree with that at all, because every single day you have to wake up and be grateful for being able to wake up, grateful for all the things that you are provided, right? But you also have to remember why you have been put on this earth and what work, that good work that you're supposed to do. So if you remind yourself of that, then you're going to be able to achieve that. And it may not be overnight. It may not be in that first year, but at the end of your first year, you're reflecting and you're remembering, okay, yeah, it hurts right now. I don't know if I want to keep doing this, but you know what? I remember why I started this. So let me go ahead and start thinking about all the great things I'm going to do next year, because there is a do-over. Every single year, there's a do-over. It's been like that. You start fresh. It's a do-over in your classroom theme. It's a do-over in your planner. It's a do-over in all of those things. At this time of the year, we're thinking about, what am I going to change when I have my do-over in 2023, 2024? So, and also I heard you talking about the support, the collaboration, right? The community is important. So I'm gonna end the night with this. I did drop a link for my cohort that starts in June, cohort number 2. And those are for the new assistant principal or the aspiring assistant principal. If you are a veteran assistant principal and you are in year 5 and you're still needing to be in a supportive community, please join. Right? So we'll be talking about all of the topics of administration, but ultimately it's a place for you to really be with the people that you need to be with, because no one knows administration like administrators. You go home at night and you vent to your spouse, right? You talk to your friends about it. They listen to you. But the best people to know what you're going through are the people that are going through it with you. And that's why I do this work, because I'm here right with you. So I dropped the link for cohort 2. And the enrollment is open until June 9th. And then we'll start that next week with the welcome call. And then we'll start the week after that with our sessions. And I'm doing 6 weeks, so 6 sessions over the summer. The best time to join a cohort like this, because either you're landing that job or, again, you're reflecting on your year and you need to be in collaboration and community with some other assistant principals that are going through it with you. So drop the link there. John, I appreciate your time and your advice and your wisdom. I am super proud of you, and I'm grateful for you spending this hour with me this evening. And if you guys have any questions, you can, if you're on the replay, you can hashtag replay, drop your question, drop your affirmation, whatever it is that you want to say, because this will be up again in Facebook, in the Facebook group, but also on YouTube. And we are here to support you as the assistant principal or the administrator, the leader, the teacher leader, right? Whatever position you're in. So thanks, John.
Thank you, Joyce, for having me. I think this was great. Awesome. Go enjoy that food. But one more question for you. Yeah. Is that a Boys in the Hood t-shirt you got on?
Of course. That's I'll tell you real quick. So I moved from one school to another, and I am able to be my authentic self in my school, and I love it so much. I was telling you earlier, if I were to do anything, I would go to middle school,
Right.
but I'm loving my school, and the kids think I'm so cool. They do. They'd be like, "Oh my gosh, Miss Conley, you a sneakerhead?" I'm like, "Yep,
You got to.
yep,
That's the
yep."
only way. Because you got to keep a pair of sneakers in the box because
Hmm.
that's the way
Oh,
you're
that's
gonna
all I
make
wear
that
now.
connection. Yeah.
That's all I wear. So they'd be like,
Oh,
"Oh,
we
you
wear
bump?"
T-shirts. We have a cause for each day. So Monday's a
Absolutely.
cause day. Tuesday, I just implemented testing attire. Wednesday, school spirit. Thursday, college day, and then
Yeah.
Friday is house day.
You have to connect with them. But I will
Yeah.
say this was not just because it was Boys in the Hood and I was like, whatever, the kids would love it.
I'm
It
just
was
thinking about it.
Mustache Day
Yeah,
and
Cuba
Cowboy
Gooden
Flag.
Jr.
It
Yeah.
was Mustache Day, okay? It was
Okay.
Mustache Day. I didn't want to get a
Yeah.
mustache, and so I said, "This is what I have." And the kids were like, "Oh, I like your shirt." But it's funny. Nobody knew who this was.
Yeah.
All the kids were talking about people that are now, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, no, this is ice. Okay, it's fine. It's fine."
That's Ice Cube.
But they
Ice
knew it was
Cube.
cool.
All
All right,
right,
well,
Joyce,
you have a
thank you
great
so
night.
much for having me.
Thank
Anytime you
you.
need me back, just let me know.
I will see you in June when we get back to what we got to do. And
Yes.
please encourage me to finish those assignments. All right. Have a good
Yes.
night.
Take care.
All right. Bye, John.
All right.